Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. It's very good morning because right now is around 6:53. I already at IIC. Post for you all. Okay, alright. So basically, this is the last chapter, as I mentioned to you all before, that I have to finish all those topics, and then uh, you have to submit your group assignment and also individual assignment within this week, okay, inshallah, together with your video presentation. And I already opened up a new regarding submission. You can submit there, and then this one I will upload in your later. You just refer to topic 12. Okay, so today we will move to the last and but not least. Okay, I have purposely left around, if I'm not mistaken, around 3 weeks, because 3 weeks is you to do and preparation for your midterm test. Okay, and then also do with some maybe some revision before we go for the real midterm test, maybe some revision for you. So yeah, that is my strategy for this subject. Okay, so okay, decision making process. Okay, so what should we learn in this topic? Okay, so every day in our life, daily life, we cannot run away from doing any decision. If I'm not mistaken, um, according to some research saying that normal human being, will make around range from 20 to 30 plus of decision making every day. So meaning to say, this is the things that we have to decide. Even though we wake up in the morning, right? Whether we want to go to class or not go to class, we want to take a bath, or we just lay down on the bed, or maybe we want to go to work, or we want to drive, we want to riding some transportation transport, okay, public transport, for example. So this is all what we call as decision. Even though we want to brush our teeth or not, every day is about decision, right? So this is the thing that we can't run away every day. Okay. So what is the types of decision? Okay. Basically, this is what under this text. Okay. According to our text, is divided into three. We have organizational decision making, the process of identifying and solving the problems. So this is focusing on the organization itself. And then the second one, we have problem decisions, repetitive and also well defined. And the second one, we have non-program decision, novel and poorly defined. So what is the difference between program decision and non-program decision? Because program decision mostly the things that we have to set up and we have to plan well. Okay, we have actually something like structured decision. Okay, meaning to say it has been taken here, repetitive and well defined. You already know what is the right things to do and what is the things that you have to make sure that the plan is being decided well. Okay, and then for non-program decision is something like novel meaning for something like not your book novel it's something like unique problem, for example, or maybe it's very rare it had been happened, so it will only might be fully defined by certain people who want to decide, especially the managers, on looking into what kind of decision have to be made. Okay, and then for decision making into the environment, as you can see from this diagram. Okay, as you can see from this diagram, it's been stated here. Today, business environment is rapid change on the left side and also uncertainty at the right side. And in the middle, they have very greater complexity, and the new decision making requirement must be made faster. So people not waiting for us, right? So that's why we have to make sure that the decision making is being made very faster to make sure that we can compete with the another organization who have something like competitive advantage towards us, right? So that's why we have to make a quick decision. Number two, no one individual has information needed. So of course, when we as the managers, when we want to make decision, of course, sometimes the information that we needed somehow um, um, is very limited. Decision making, in order to make decision making, it will be limited. Okay, what I'm trying to say, I want to say to you all, when we want to make decision making, when there is a limited information, there will be a problem, right? So that's why we have to make the new decision making. So indicated in here, the green color here, when we want to make the requirement new decision making, that's why we have to say that everyone in here and another managers also do not have any information, sufficient information like me. So that's why we need to make the new decision making. And the third one require more cooperation. We need some, maybe some what we call support from the lower levels, the middle levels, and so too with our colleagues and subordinates to make sure that decision making that we make is will be wise decision. Okay. And number four, rely less on the hard data. So basically, in the kinds of the technology nowadays, advances of the technology, we have to listen in terms of the hard data. Because why? Why the reason? Because we do not know anything happen, especially when, let's say, in terms of hard data might be have some leak. You don't leak, something like might be um, been hurt or maybe might be leaked to the irresponsibility person or authority. So that's why what we have to do, hook by crook, it's better to have the soft copy data, soft data. So meaning to say it have to be intangible, all in the hardware, for example, sorry, all in the like drive, for example, or maybe it being kept in an e-filing, and there will be like protected under certain password, security password. So that's why it might be encouraging to have more on rely on the hard data. And the fifth one, we are talking about there is less certainty about the outcomes. So when we have to make the new decision, somehow, because we do not know what is the best, what is the certain decision, so that's why we have to come up with the new decision making. And the last one, evolving through trial and error. Of course, we are talking about, we do not know whether how 100% is successful the decision making we made. So that's why we have to try and error. From that, we know that okay, so the first decision making that we made, maybe that is success. Maybe the second time we made the same thing, maybe it's fail. So this is what we call as trial and error. Okay, and then we're moving to individual decision making. So in here it's be divided into two. We have rational approach, which is the ideal methods for how managers should make decision. So when we're talking about rational approach, this is what we're trying to minimize in terms of like cost, and we want to maximize the profit. And of course, in other way around, we want to minimize the risk. So that's why when we're talking about the ideal method, is depend on how that uh, define, how does the manager define on the ideal method itself. And the second one, we're talking about bounded rationality perspective. Okay, how decisions are made under several time and resource constraint. So we are talking about how does you can make the certain decision making in the kind of the situation that very constrained to us, very limited. Meaning to say they have several time in here, meaning to say they have very limited time, and maybe sometimes it forcing us to make decision during that time too. And in terms of the constraint of the resources, we are talking about the resources itself that we have very limited. For example, like raw materials, maybe labor, and maybe in terms of um, the production line need some raw materials, right? So that is means of the resource constraint, okay? And maybe like, of course, that the most importantly is what, like capital money, to start up the business. So that will be like resource constraint. So in other way around, okay, the steps in the rational approach, if you see, they start with number one until eight. So number one, of course, the problem identification. One until two, four step at my right side here, okay, if you see from the diagram right side, it's all about the problem identification. So number one, we monitor the decision environment. And number two is about define decision problems. And number three, specify decision objective. And the last one, diagnose the problem. So this is in the part of problem identifications. So for number 5, 6, 7, 8, number 5 is about how we want to develop the alternative solutions. Okay, after we diagnose the problem, of course we come up with what is the alternative for the solution. Maybe we have solution A, B, C, D, E, F until Z. Let's say the 26 alphabet, 26 alternative, and then we evaluate the alternative. Okay, how we want to evaluate alternative? Again, I'm talking about we can minimize the cost, minimize risk, and also maximize the profit. What is beneficial to us when we decide on the problem solutions, and choose the best alternative, meaning to say you have seen from the evaluate alternative stages right now, just now, it's about like where is the weightage? I need to use the word weightage in here. In term, which one of the alternative can give the most beneficial to us? Okay, and which one might be alternative might be very minimized cost, and which is the alternative can give the best solution, right? And of course, they will be choose the best alternative from all that, and then the last one implement the chosen alternative as the solution and the decision making. Okay, all right. So we're moving to the bounded rationality perspective. Okay, there is a limit to how rational managers can be time and resource constrained. So meaning to say is referring to the non-program decision. And of course, the second one we're talking about the constraint and the trade-off. Sometimes the constraint impede the decision maker, right? Because when we're talking about impede the decision maker in here, it's forcing, okay, to make the decision, even though it's in the constraint and very limited resources. And the role of the institution is intuition, sorry, not institution. The role of intuition, or in other way words, I like to use the word intuition is something like your heart guts feeling, you know. So from your experience and judgment rather than logic. Sometimes it might be contrast to those who might be more on logic thinking and also rational thinking, because intuition based on the gut feelings, not gut feeling but guts feelings. Okay, how you react, how you respond, because from the previous experience towards doing something about the decision making. Okay, and then we do also have this thing actually in the previous point, but it's been put into this kind of diagram. Okay, so we have constraint and the trade-off, whereby we have during the non-program decision making. So if you see from the left side, okay, we have bounded rationality versus organizational constraint, and they do have like a limited time, information, resources to deal with the complex multi-dimension issue. So this is in the bounded rationality, and under the organization constraint, for example, in terms of the level of agreement, okay, shared perspective, cooperation or support, and then we have corporate cultures and structure and also ethical value. And in terms of the personal constraint, we do have like personal desire for prestige and then success, personal decision style, and the desire to satisfy emotional needs and cope with the pressure. And the last one, we maintain the self-concept. And for the trade-off, decision choice, search for the high-quality decision alternative. So this is element under each of these key points. Okay, maybe you can use in order to explain. Okay, what is the personal constraint mostly. When we are talking about to make decision, right? What we have to deal with it. So mostly cope with the pressure, right? This is the most important thing how we want to actually control, because when pressure automatically we go with the emotional, right? So emotional sometimes is balance, sometimes imbalance. So that's the thing that we have to take into consideration, because we don't want to make the decision making based on emotion. So you have to make decision making based on the rationality, inshallah, on that, yeah. And then, so we're moving to the organizational decision making. So in here we have management science approach, we have Carnegie model and also incremental decision model. Okay, so what is management science approach? Okay, so management science approach is basically use of the statistics to identify relevant variable. So if I was, if I'm not mistaken, during my study before, on how we want to, because we are doing some research, right, regarding science management and management science. So we have to do some analysis, and the analysis will use some software that we call as SPSS. Okay, so this SPSS is something like that you learn in research methodology class. I do not know whether IIC provide you for the degree level research methodology classes, but it should have. And then the second one is remove the human element because it's a very successful for the military problems. It depends because this thing is already started during this during this 1920s time, during this World War. Okay, so this is a good tool for decision whereby variable can be identified and measured. So variable in here something like what is the factor influence to, let's say, the productivity. Okay, productivity or performance of the workers. Let's say they are working in factory line. So the factors that influence variables is productivity. Uh, Independent variables is, for example, that quantity of the product produced. Let's say, okay. So this thing is relate, right? How you want to influence, okay, in terms of the pay for the quantity. For example, if you produce 500 per day quantity, you get 1,000. So they manage to get because of the factors of the pay. So pay is related to the productivity. Example, a drawback of the management side is that quantitative data, they are not rich and lack basic knowledge. So when we're talking about the quantitative data, we're talking about data that can be calculated, can be counting. So mostly quantitative data is referring to like survey that you did for your assignment, right? Group assignment. So you realize or not, everything single of this quantitative data have to be like put it into the survey, and we have to count it, how many respondent, how many saying agreed, how many saying not agreed on that, how many saying neutral. So somehow not all people will be respond to that. So if we're talking about what's the difference between quantitative data and qualitative data we can ask, and people will, they will respond it when we ask, interview them, asking them, responding, digging them, and we can see in terms of the emotional and reaction of their response, okay, respondent, okay, whether they like it, the question, whether they don't like it, we can see. But from the survey, we just see the response on how they take it, whether their response click, maybe they say yes, no about that. So in terms of the lack basic knowledge in here, we do not know in terms of the EQ. Okay, basic knowledge is more on how they emotional, how they respond. So they will be totally out nowhere. Alright, and then for the Kennedy model, so this is an example of the Kennedy model. We have at the left side is about uncertainty and conflicts. So as you can see from here, for the uncertainty, the information is very limited. And then mostly the managers have many constraints to make decision. And for the conflict, managers have diverse goals, opinion, value, and also experience. So when they do have many experience, reach of the experience, right? So mostly probably they do have some egoism. They keep on arguing among themselves, whether to say that I have the best, I have reach of the experiences, I can make the best decision in here. So who are you to argue with me? Or something like there will be conflict arise here, right? And then for the coalition formation, so coalition in here, we're talking about how you can get some what we call as how sorry how you want to ensure that in terms of decision making. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry, let's take some appropriate. Okay. So for the coordination formation, something like joint venture. I think that we had already touched in the previous topic, if you still remember. If maybe topic 10, okay. Hall join the discussion and integrate goals and the problems. And then we also have shares the opinion. And of course, in here we will have some establish the problem priorities. So which problem that we want to settle first. So we put some priorities in here, and then obtain the social support for the problem or solution. For example, like existence of technology, existence of financial, existence of training. So all those kind of support is needed in this coalition formation. Coalition is something like what can the external environment helping you. Okay, so it doesn't mean just external environment, but it's so it can be internal itself, because we're talking about the company as well. And then for the search, we conduct a simple or local search and use the established procedure if appropriate, for example, like SOP, standard of procedure, and create a solution if needed. And the last one, we will be satisfying the decision behavior, which is adopt the first alternative that is acceptable to the coalition. Um, of course, we want to make sure that, as I mentioned just now, every single people, when they make decision, of course, number one, they want to minimize the risk. And maybe, of course, it's related to the cost, will be minimize the cost. And of course, it will be the decision making will give something like consensus to everyone, something like win-win situation in terms of beneficial and also profits. Alright, and then incremental decision model. So this is basically focused on the structured sequence of activities from discovery to solutions. Okay, and then we have the large decision collections of the small choices, and decision interrupts are barriers. So it been stated here. Um, Okay, to say in a short word, incremental decision model is something like sequence of activity. They have step by step. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From discovery, from identify of the problem until to the solution, until the problem solved, right? And then for the second one, they say here, large decisions are a collection of the small choices. So meaning to say, um, to decide on this thing, mostly it's come from the alternatives that been circulated, that have been gathered before. Okay, you remember that the diagram that we mentioned before, this one. So the alternative, develop alternative solution here, right? In number 5 here, it's come from the small area from here, and then it will become the large decision. They will gather it together to see that this can be uh, decide on how to resolve this problem. Okay, and number 3, decision interrupts are barriers. Okay, decision interrupts are barriers mostly in terms of like identification phases. Okay, phase, development phase, selection phase, and also dynamic factors. So this is mostly decision will be have some interruptions, and will be have some constraint. Okay, all right. So the incremental decision model, okay, if you can see, this is something like they have three phases. Is identification phase, the purple color, the orange color is development phase, and the blue color is selection phase. So it starts from the recognition from the internal interrupt, and then they go with the diagnosis. Diagnosis meaning to say you are predicting, you do some prediction towards that problem, and then for the development phase, they have some search, screen, and design. And then for the selection phase, they do have judgment evaluation on choice, analysis evaluation, and also bargaining evaluation on choice. And the last one, they do have the authorization. Okay, so we're moving to the how we want to identify the problem and the problem solution. Okay, so as you can see from here, uh, number one, when the problem identification, okay, uh, ready, yeah, I have some text here. When the problem identification is uncertain, meaning to say you are not confirmed, okay, what is the problem actually? So Kennedy model is applies. Because we're still in the state that we do not know whether this is the real problem or this is the root cause, or whether this is not root cause after all, whether this is just another additional problem but not as the main problem, right? Okay, and the second one, political and social process is needed, of course, because we have to do some analysis on this problem identification, right? And then we build the coalitions and then seek agreement and resolve conflicts about the goals and the problem priority. So group by group, we have to decide whether which problem is the main problem and which problem that we have to settle first. We have to do some solution. Okay, And of course, it's based on the first come first serve, and of course it goes with the priorities. And then for the problem solution, when the problem solution is uncertain, the incremental decision models also applies. So this is also when it comes to, we do not know which solution is the most can be settle the problem. So we will use incremental decision model. When just now the problem is cannot be identified, we use Carnegie model. But for this one, when the problem solution cannot be identified, so this one can be not identified, not uncertain, meaning to say uncertain. So uncertain will be incremental decision model, and then incremental there will be keep to have try and error process. Okay, and of course they will solve the big problem in little step. Meaning to say small step will goes to the bigger step, right? It's like baby. Start with the just small feet and then one feet, and then they will be lay down, right? They will just like baby when they start to take like baby step, right? Okay, and then the last one is cycle and try again when it's blocked. So we need to say it keep on having to try and error, try and error. There will be have some failure, not some, but must be have the failure. Alright, and then we're moving to the garbage can model. If you ask me whether why it's called garbage, it's been renamed like that, right? It's been given that name like that. Alright, so this is the pattern or flow of the multiple decision. So meaning to say you have meaning to say it have more than one decision. So we will be think of the whole organization, and it will be explained decision making in the high uncertainty organized anarchy. So of course in here, what is the decision making based on the high uncertainty organized anarchy? Number one is based on the problematic preferences. So of course we prefer which problem that we want to identify first. Right, this is that we call garbage can model, and somehow it will be like very unclear, and they have a very poorly understood technology. They do not know after all what is the technology all about, and it will be actually potentially to have high turnover. High turnover in here means to say your probability of your employees will be replacing and excessive, and I can say that they will keep on replace to get the new employees and then get the new employees and so forth. So high turnover in the organization is not good. Okay, it's not good. It's signaling that the company is not proper managed. Okay, a good management company will have low turnover. Okay, and we do have the stream of events instead of define the problem and solution. Stream of event means to say here, um, they have like a trending of one event to event to solve the problems. Okay, okay, and then consequences of the garbage can model. Okay, number one, solution may be proposed even when the problem do not exist. So that's why they call as the garbage can model. What is for what the sake, for what purpose you come up with the solution, whereas the problem is not identified and the problem is not exist after all. So it's something like lose there. Okay, it's something like what you are trying to do, something like that, right? And number two, choices are made without solving the problem. So it's something like not effective brainstorming, okay? So they just give some alternative, which is some the alternative is totally rubbish. So this is why they call as garbage can. And then number three, the problem may persist without being solved. So basically, it's not settling the problem. Okay, and the last one, a few problems are solved. So even though it's called as garbage can model, but still from the 10, maybe from the 10 problems arise, maybe they can solve around 3. Yeah, probability, right? Maybe maybe 1 upon 10, they can solve the problem. There's a few problems can be solved from all the alternative being done, and the choices are made, but even though it's not solving any problem. But don't say any, sometimes like some problems can be solved, right? Okay, and then this is the illustration of the independent streams of the event in the garbage can model or decision making. It's quite complicated, like diagram, right? you see from here is that problems, and then they have solution, and then there will be a middle management will be do some action in here. And then if you realize there will be the participants, and then they have PS is referring to the problems, S is for solutions, and then we have choice opportunity, COs, and they do have the participants, PARs. And then if you realize, okay, they have also COs is choice opportunity. They come to the Department A, Department B, and then this problem is keeps the cycling inside that, and then there will be solution, and then participants problem, and it have start like keep on like cycling around that, right? If you realize from this diagram, so it's expecting that even though they have some choice opportunities there, but some of the choice opportunity is not even give some solution to the problem. So that's why it has to keep like rotation in terms of the process itself. Alright. So for the competency framework for using decision model, so if you see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, so above for the axis X, we do have problem consensus, and we have 4 quadrants here. At the left side we have certain, and the right side we have the uncertain. And for the axis Y, we have the solution knowledge. We have at the bottom one we have uncertain, and at the top we have a certain. So you can see for the first quadrant we have individual, which have the rational approach, which is referring to the computation, and the organization is based on the management science. And for the uncertain, we for the problem consensus, for the individual they have bargaining, coordination, formation, and also they have some the solution, because they're talking about the problem consensus is the uncertain, so they will call as Kennedy model. And for the third one, we do have like judgment for the trial and error. So this one is uncertain solution knowledge. So they based on incremental decision model. And the last one, we do have like more on a problem consensus will be uncertain, but in terms of course the social knowledge also is uncertain, so they have bargaining and judgment, inspiration, and also imitation. And for the learning organization, they do have the synergy and incremental decision model evolving to the garbage can model. So totally for the garbage model is not so give some, not give any solution for the problem arise, because the problem also not exist, right? Okay, and then for the specialization circumstances, uh, this is what been wrapped up in this topic, right? So the today's environment present high stakes and the quick decision. So that's why in order to compete to one company, they have to make the quick decision making. If not, you will be like left like frog under the leaf, or will be like left behind, right? Because we have to make the quick and faster decision. And the second one, managers must deal with the high velocity of the environment. Of course, we are talking about how does it can indicate whether the environment can be stable and flexible. And then learning from decision mistakes, because every single mistake being done, we learn something, right? Because we are human being, we are not robotic, we not from the AI, artificial intelligence, to do everything perfectly. Even the robotic also sometimes they have some error. So that's why we learn from mistakes. And then the third one, understanding the cognitive and the personal bias. That's why God give us brain. So this brain is also to think, used to think, right? So that's why we need these cognitive skills. And then in terms of the personal bias, we know how we want to escalating the commitment. So how we want to make sure that the commitment be given everybody well as well, and to make sure that the commitment is give 100%. Not only one person is 100%, and the rest is only like 10, 20, 30, and 50. So everybody give 100% effort. So the project or the certain thing task can be done successfully. Okay, and in terms of the prospect theory, as been mentioned before, we have garbage can model, energy model. We also have like incremental model. All are just to give some guideline. Okay, give some what we call something like the way path, what is the best to decide, okay, which decision making can be made. And of course, when we're talking about the group thing, this is the problem, because this is the thing that mostly arising in the industry. Because if you have more on people support, especially this kind of the chronism, right? So your idea sometimes is a very good idea, but because you have less support, you are not involved into like this kind like chronism, let's say, okay? So your idea will be like put into like in the garbage. But for those who are maybe the idea is not totally excellent, it's not, I we can say garbage can model, right? But what they say, they might say this is the best decision they made. So everybody have a very full support towards him or her, and then they will be goes with the group thing. Group thing in here meaning to say you have indirectly follow whether that decision they made, even though that decision is not so good. So that is group thing because it's based on the majority. And evidence-based management, of course, when we do something, of course, we've been discussed just now, right? So we're talking about every single of decision we make must have the evidence. So it based on management sciences that have been implemented during the military times. So I mentioned to you management sciences. So this is the thing that it have to be into is good when we identify where is the variable, where is it independent variable, but after all it's based to rely on the situation itself, what to decide and what decision making have to be made according to the situation, and encourage dissent and also diversity. Of course, in life right now in towards the globalization trending, of course we encouraging on more on diversity workforce, and of course when we have this kind of dissent, we actually encouraging people to work like not only towards one culture. So we have the multi-diversity culture and diversity workforce that can we know, oh, this is how the good things we can follow, but the bad things we can just avoid, right? So this is um yeah. Last but not least, okay, so most decisions are not made in the logical manner, mostly, okay, but they are more on like emotional or maybe rational, okay. Individual make decision, but organizational decision are not made by a single individual. It's a group of people, it's a department, representative of department, right? And the third one, conflict exists when the problems are not agreed on. Yeah, of course, even though you and your siblings also will be have some conflict, right? Even with the partners also we have the conflict. So when there is no consensus, there will be conflict arise. And the garbage can model has become a description of decision making. Can become a description, they say in here. And organization operate in a high velocity of the environment because the environment is unpredictable. So we have to make sure that the decision making can suit with the situation what occurred during that time. So we cannot decide, okay, this one must be based on the garbage can model, this one based on incremental model, this one is based on Kennedy model. So we have to based on the analysis being done according to the situation, suit the situation as well. And of course, allowing bias to cloud decision making can have negative consequences. uh, to become 100% nil, nothing, never bias is cannot be run away because we are human being. So bias can occur, but minimize the bias. So when we able to minimize the bias indirectly, we can have some like more on the positive consequences towards that. Thank you for listening to me this morning, and I hope that it can be beneficial to you all. Thank you. Okay, assalamualaikum. This is the last topic, okay? Alright, thank you.